justice and silence. In the heart of Richmond, Virginia, where the James River hums and old brick buildings whisper of history, a federal courthouse stood as a silent sentinel. Inside its oak-paneled walls, a storm was brewing. Officer Tom Harlan, a man whose swagger filled rooms before he did, strode into courtroom 3B like he owned it. His boots clicked on the marble floor, his gum snapped between his teeth, and his eyes glinted with defiance. He was here not for justice, but to win a game he thought he'd already mastered. Across the room, Judge Evelyn Carter entered, her crimson robe slicing through the beige monotony like a warning. She was a black woman, her presence commanding yet calm, her silence louder than any gavel. What unfolded over the next hour would unravel a man, a system, and a legacy built on noise. Tom Harlan slouched in the plaintiff's chair, his broad shoulders tilted back as if daring the room to challenge him. He'd been a cop for 20 years, kicked down doors, led SWAT raids, and earned medals for it. Today, he faced a hearing for misconduct, but to him, it was just another Tuesday. He smirked as Evelyn took the bench, muttering loud enough for the front rows to hear, "What's this, a costume party?" Her robe, a bold departure from the standard black, seemed to offend him personally. He leaned forward, his voice dripping with contempt. "You think the get-up scares me, Judge? I've seen worse on the streets." Evelyn didn't flinch. Her eyes locked onto his, not with anger but with the precision of a surgeon sizing up a wound. For 30 seconds, the room held its breath. No papers rustled, no chairs creaked. Adjust her gaze, peeling back Tom's bravado layer by layer. He shifted, his gums slowing, his smirk faltering. "What now?" he snapped, slamming a hand on the table. "You gonna stare me down all day?" Still, she said nothing. The silence wasn't empty. It was a weapon, and Evelyn wielded it with devastating skill. Tom's voice filled the void again, louder now. "This is a circus, and you're the ringmaster. You think you're better than me because you've got a fancy chair." He spat the words, his face twisting with a mix of rage and amusement. Then, in a move so brazen it stunned the room, he leaned over and spat on the floor, a deliberate, ugly act of defiance. "This court," he growled, "is beneath me." The room froze, but Evelyn's expression didn't change. She looked at the spit, then back at him, her gaze marking him like a target. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and measured, cutting through the air like a blade. "You mistake arrogance for immunity, Mr. Harlan. This room doesn't bend to your tempo." Tom blinked, the gum in his mouth stilled. She leaned forward slightly, her silhouette immovable. "You want to perform? Perform. But this isn't your stage." For the first time, Tom's mouth opened, then closed. His script had run dry. Evelyn reached for a document, her movements deliberate. "Proceeding number 4817 is now open," she said, flipping pages with a rhythm that seemed to mock Tom's impatience. He scoffed, trying to regain ground. "What? You reading a novel up there? Need a coffee break too?" She didn't respond. Instead, she raised her eyes, her voice slicing through his bravado. "I'm reviewing the ethical conduct report of a former officer with 12 complaints over 10 years. It's a lot to go through." Tom's face tightened. "Complaints? From who? Thugs who didn't like getting cuffed? That file's garbage." His voice cracked, betraying a flicker of desperation. Evelyn continued, unfazed. "First, Marcus Tate, age 14, detained without cause, left with a broken arm. Medical report confirms blunt force trauma. Second, Carla Mendez, held for obstruction, released after 22 hours when she was only a witness. Third, Jamal Reed, shot in the leg while reaching for his ID, denied aid for 7 minutes. Each name landed like a stone, heavy and undeniable." Tom slammed the table. "They were trash. I kept the streets clean while you were writing essays in some ivory tower." His voice echoed, but the room didn't echo back. Evelyn's response was calm, final. "You didn't secure the streets. You strangled them." The air shifted. Tom laughed, but it was hollow, a desperate attempt to reclaim control. "What are you going to do? Write a report? Take my name off a spreadsheet?" Evelyn tapped her gavel once, the sound soft but commanding. "Court officer, present the service weapon and badge of Officer Tom Harlan." A bailiff approached, and Tom's bravado crumbled. "You can't do this," he shouted, but his voice was smaller now. He handed over his badge and gun, the metallic clink on the table sounding like a door slamming shut. Evelyn turned to a screen behind her, and with a click, audio filled the room. Tom's voice from a 2017 training session. "When you take down a black male, make him scared. Fear is compliance." The room didn't gasp. It froze. Tom jumped to his feet. That was internal. It wasn't supposed to be recorded. You're mistaken, Evelyn said. What you teach becomes doctrine. What becomes doctrine becomes judgment. She paused, her eyes piercing. You're not on trial, Mr. Harlan. You're a case study. The words hit harder than any verdict. Tom's face contorted, but he had no response. The room belonged to Evelyn now, not because she demanded it, but because she never had to. The hearing's climax came when Evelyn produced a sealed envelope. Inside was footage from a hallway camera, crystal clear, showing Tom storming toward her after a prior hearing. He jabbed a finger in her face, raised his fist, and snarled, "Get off the bench, you uppity bitch." The room inhaled, the venom of his words hanging in the air. Evelyn didn't look at the screen. She lived it. You didn't assume there was no video, she said. You deleted it. But cameras don't forget. The board didn't vote. They didn't need to. Tom's career was over. In the weeks that followed, Tom's name was erased from every system. His tactical certificate, issued by a defunct training center, was exposed as fraudulent. His profile vanished from federal databases, his login credentials locked, his legacy scrubbed. He tried to fight back, hiring a lawyer, but the response was blunt. There's no legacy to protect. At home, his wife filed for divorce, his daughter texted, "I'm removing your name from our family tree," and his phone went silent. Tom Harlan, once a force, was now a ghost. Evelyn, meanwhile, rewrote the rules. She unearthed a 2016 memo sheet authored, buried by superiors, recommending Tom's dismissal. Now, as a judge, she had the power to act. She drafted new federal guidelines, her name bold on the cover, ensuring accountability wasn't just a buzzword. Her chapter in the National Law Enforcement Ethics Manual, titled "The Enforcer and the Boundaries of Power," became required reading. It didn't name Tom, but every line dissected his failures. Cadets debated it, veterans squirmed, and systems shifted. One evening, in a quiet Richmond park, Evelyn sat on a bench, a book unopened in her lap. A woman with a stroller approached. "You're the judge from the Harlan case, right? Aren't you scared he'll come back?" Evelyn's eyes met hers, calm and certain. "I don't fear men who yell. I watch those who can't face what they've done." The woman nodded, and Evelyn returned to her stillness, the world moving on around her. Tom, in a rundown apartment near I-95, stared into a cracked mirror. His name was gone from the systems, his voice erased from training videos, his face a meme mocked online. A journalist found him one morning, recorder in hand. "Mr. Harlan, what would you say to those you hurt?" He stared past her, silent. The footage aired, 20 seconds of Nothinga man with no words left. The silence wasn't his choice, it was his sentence. The ethics manual's final line, penned by Evelyn, hung in precincts nationwide. You don't need to remember the name of who failed. Remember why they were removed. Tom Harlan's story ended not with a bang, but with a deletion. Evelyn Carter's began anew, not with applause, but with a system finally listening. What do you think? This story of justice, silence, and accountability raises tough questions about power, violence, and fairness. Should Tom Harlan have been given a chance to redeem himself, or was his erasure justified? How do we address systemic injustice in our own communities? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Take a stand, voice your perspective, and let's spark a real conversation about confronting abuse and building a better future.